useful. So, a bit of an introduction. My name's Christian. I am an RTT therapist and coach, and I have a particular specialization in helping business owners, particularly people at the start of their business journey, get out of self-sabotage so they can show up in their business with clarity, with confidence, and with control, because that's what their business needs if they're going to make that business work. Hey Sam, how you doing, mate? Are you in Dubai? Sorry, I've just jumped in to say hi to Sam. So the reason that I choose to specialize in self-sabotage is because it's something that I have struggled with for most of my adult life, in really, really destructive ways. I've always held myself back from doing the things that I want to do, and from moving forward in the way that I wanted to move forward. So it's something that I care a lot about, and I also know that self-sabotage is probably one of the most destructive traits of anybody that's going into business for themselves, because it's an incredibly intense, vulnerable thing to do if you're not set up to do it in the right way. And working with people that are struggling with this is hugely rewarding, because the changes and the transformations they can have when we break free from self-sabotage, we realize what it is, we start to build habits to get around it, is really, really powerful. So the purpose of today is just to help share a little bit of clarity on what self-sabotage actually is, okay? A few traits to look out for if you're not sure if you're suffering from sabotage. And then I'm going to share a quick 3 little exercise which involves asking yourself 3 questions which will help you transform self-sabotage into a source of insight, clarity, and motivation and confidence. Okay, it's a really, really good exercise to do. It's really good fun, but it's also very powerful. So what I hope you get out of this is just develop a bit of curiosity about what self-sabotage is. Start building a habit of catching it, which is really important. The more we can catch these things, the quicker and more powerfully we can change them. And also give you this cool little tool that you can do anytime to address the behaviors that you're doing, pull them out on the table, analyze them, and turn it into something that's holding you back to something that you can pull insight and clarity from. So I hope it's useful. So straight off the bat, let's just talk about what self-sabotage is. So ultimately, self-sabotage is when a part of your personality acts in direct conflict with another part of that personality. So it's performing a behavior or an act that is intentionally and unintentionally impeding you from making progress towards something that you want to achieve. Okay, I call it the clash of desires. I take a lot of inspiration from a guy called Robert Kagan and the wonderful Jason Goldberg who talk about it in terms of competing commitments. But ultimately, we know what we want to achieve in life. We know the actions that we've got to take, but there are some parts of us that are just holding us back, and they won't let us get it. They won't let us move forward because those two things are competing against one another. So why do we do it? Okay, well, there is direct correlation between self-sabotage and self-preservation, right? Everybody suffers from the traits of self-sabotage. It's inbuilt, it's wired into us, it's ancestral, okay? It's wired into us, into our brains, because our brains are wired to cling on to what's familiar and overestimate what we perceive as risks. So there's a little part of our brain called the amygdala, and that part of that brain has one function, and that is to assess the world around us and help us find the familiar, the comfortable, the safe and secure, and what in terms of what that means to us, and also identify risks and help us avoid those risks. And what we see familiar and what we see as a risk is very individual to each and every one of us, and almost in all cases reflects our beliefs and our values. So the problem here is most of our beliefs in life are established between the ages of 4 and 9 years old, right? Now that's scary, but it's scientifically proven that most of our brains are wired, and most of our worldview and our beliefs are established by the times we're 9 years old. So some of those beliefs serve us, some of them just don't. Okay. Yeah. So what I would have considered a risk as a little 5-year-old running around the garden is just ridiculous. It's not a risk today, but the brain doesn't think like that. As if it's established as a belief, I'm going to take those risks, I'm going to take that perception forward with me into adult life unless I do the work to change those beliefs. So it's very human. We all suffer from it. And the good news is that beliefs can be changed. And by changing those beliefs, we can fundamentally change the results that we're getting in life. So a few things to look out for in terms of how self-sabotage is showing up, because it can be a clever little beast, right? It can be very imperceptible sometimes, but there are ways that you can start to see whether or not you are sabotaging something that you're looking for. First and foremost, numero uno, procrastination, right? You are now watching who used to be the king of procrastinating. Okay, but here's the thing, right? There are two types of procrastination, right? And it's not all bad. There's a positive type of procrastination, okay? And when I work with clients, I actually encourage them, if they're trying to do a task, whether it could be invoicing, admin, it could be something, if they're engaged in a task and it's dragging them down, I actually encourage them to step away and go and do something that gets them back up to a better level of energy, and then bring that energy back to the task. I say that's positive procrastination, and it's a really good habit to do. Okay, it's not task avoidance, it's not being lazy, it's being conscious that you're not bringing your best self to something that you're doing. So just step away for 10-20 minutes, go and do something that you do enjoy, get your energy up, and come back and do the task. The problem with procrastination is when it becomes destructive, and we actually avoid doing something entirely because we are uncomfortable with how it might make us feel. We see it as a risk, and so we completely avoid it together. And that can then trigger a spiral into stress, self-criticism, and all the other things that come with it. So procrastination is a key one to look out for, but make sure you make the distinction between conscious procrastination, because you want to actually bring your better self to a task, and procrastination that's just generally keeping you away from doing it and doing what you need to do. Second trait, task avoidance. Look for self-criticism. The old monkey mind can chatter away. When you find self-critical thinking increasing around a particular task, that's your mind trying to get you away from doing it to keep you safe. Look for things like denial is a big one. If you're denying, if we deny something's happening, then we don't have to take action against it, and that can be very destructive. Look for things like distraction, deflection, drifting off, and daydreams, a classic one. Again, daydreaming, when the mind when you're doing a task and you just start to daydream and drift away, 20-30 minutes can go by, and all of a sudden, that task has ground to a halt and you're not doing it. So those are just some of the things to look out for. There are some more damaging things, so subconsciously as well. You might want to look for patterns of I'll give you an example from my own life. I have used to be quite well known for going out and getting quite drunk the night before big meetings. And I think there's some people on here that used to work with me. Carrie, how you doing? If you're still on. I used to go out and get quite drunk the night before meetings or events that really, really mattered. And look, that wasn't irresponsibility. Well, it was, but it is also a classic form of self-sabotage happening at a very deep subconscious level. Going out, doing something that or the mind knows is going to take you out of the game entirely the following day from having to tackle that task. So look for little patterns of behaviors like that, because noticing those things is really where the insight comes in. Okay, so we know what self-sabotage is, we know why we do it, okay, and some of the traits that we need to look out for. So here's an exercise that you can do, which I love doing, and I love doing it with my clients as well, because it's very empowering, it's great fun, and you can really pull a lot of insight from it. But more importantly, it's about control. It's about calming down the inner dialogue, the self-criticism, the self-loathing, all the things that can come when we realize that we're sabotaging the things we can do. Okay, so you might want to try this now. Get a pen and paper. It only takes about 5 minutes. 3 questions, right? Number 1, just write down and define what is the main desire or commitment right now that you're not taking action towards. I'll give you an example. I know I need to go to more networking events, okay, around my local area with the Chamber of Commerce. And I know that going to those events is going to be a really important part of growing my coaching and therapy business, because everything's about human interaction, relationships, right? But I'm not going to them. Okay, so that's my thing, right? I have got a commitment to go to more networking events. I'm not doing it. So question number 2, just play the story in your head. Just assume that you are doing that thing, right? And you're doing it regularly. You're on it. It's within your, you're going to them every week and it's part of your routine and you're making it happen. So here's the question. What's the worst part of doing that thing? Okay. Just sit with that for a while. Don't think about what's the best thing if I did that networking event, it would do this, this, and this. What's the worst part of going to those networking events, or that thing that you're avoiding? So this is where you're going to get the insight. Because if you sit with that for a while and really think about it and make a full list, like I don't want to get up early. I'm an introvert and I get very embarrassed meeting people. I'm scared that no one's going to want to listen to what I've got to say. I don't want to stand up and do the presentations. Whatever they are, just make as long a list of excuses or reasons for not doing that action as you can. The worst things about doing it, and within that list there will be a dominant thing that is the clashing desire against actually doing the thing that you want to do, and that's the thing that you're looking out for. Okay. Hey Major, how you doing? Sorry, just jumped in. So number 1, write down one of the main things in your life right now that you need to do that you're not doing. Okay. Number 2, just play a little game in your head, storify it, assume that you're doing all that thing, you're making it happen, and ask yourself, what's the worst thing about doing that action? Okay. And just try and find 1, 2, or 3 things that really stack up. The dominant narrative in the head that's going, that's the thing, okay? That's the thing that's going to be painful, right? If I'm doing that on a regular basis, okay? Now the third question, right? And this is the key one. How could some, all, or even one of those things from question 2 actually support you in achieving what you want to achieve? And that's where you're going to get the insight. And I'll give you an example for the networking side of things. Maybe going to these networking events, which typically happen early in the morning, will be good for my wellness routine. Getting up earlier, getting up brighter, maybe support me in that way. Maybe, I'm expanding my network. Maybe I could meet people that might be able to help people in my other professional network, my wife's business, my friend's business. Maybe the experience could be resource for writing a blog, or helping me be a better coach and therapist by actually, experimenting with going through what it's like to actually take that head on. Whatever it is, the key is to really have a look at all those reasons, all the things all the worst things, that would come up from doing that action on a regular basis, and trying to see how some of those things can actually support you in what you're trying to do, okay? Because that's where the value is, all right? So it's not about proving one thing over the other, okay? It's not about proving that this commitment to going to networking is more important than this commitment to keeping myself from being rejected or keep myself from awkward situations presenting. It's not about weighing one against the other. It's about teasing out the reasons why one can support the other, to give you back a bit of control, to give you a bit of calm to the situation, right? Looking at the situation a bit more positively, taking back a bit of power, and just opening up your perspectives, because that's really what it's about. Now here's the key. If you do this enough, right, and you get into a habit of doing this, we go back to that point about the brain and how it's wired to keep us towards the familiar. You start to rewire the brain a little bit, and you start to reinforce to yourself, I'm taking control of this, okay, I'm on top of this, and I'm going to take you down. And that has an exponential effect on all the other things that you might be sabotaging. So it's really, really powerful. Okay, well, that's it for me. That was my first live. And Sam, Adam, Carrie, Major, Matt, I won't forget you. So, you're sort of my first live audience. I hope you found it useful, guys. I guess this will be posted on my profile. And look, if you or anybody you know out there needs a little bit of extra help with some self-sabotaging behaviors in any areas of their life, particularly around business, click my profile image at the top of the page. There's a link there where you can set up a discovery call. I'd love to chat with you. I am 100% committed to helping as many people as I can with this issue, because I know how destructive it can be, but equally I know the opportunities that can open up when we really start to tackle and take on the enemy that lies within. Have a great evening, everyone. See you again soon. Bye-bye.